and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1655 AN. Today's date is September 4th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Central Bankers Attempted to Destroy the U.S. They Have Failed. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, it looks like the central bankers, they're really pushing their agenda in every corner of the world here, because they realize their entire system is completely falling apart, and the people, they don't want to be a part of their private central banking world, the globalist world, and they don't like this. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep every single country in with them. They don't want anyone leaving. They want them full of debt. They destroy every single one of the countries. They enslave the people with debt. And we can see already the UK, they want out. They want to leave. They had a referendum. The people said, listen, we're done here. Let's move on. And the central bankers, they've been trying to keep the people within the central bank under their rules, even when they want to leave. And they're saying if there's a no-deal Brexit, this could result in some difficulties for several economy sectors, including food, transportation, pharmaceutical drugs, and everything else. Now, remember when they were having the referendum, and they said if the people voted for the Brexit, the entire economy would implode, and this is why you can't do it. They're doing the same thing once again, because they want a deal that benefits them. So what they do is they threaten, they make it seem like it's all going to fall apart if you don't do it their way. This goes along with cryptocurrencies. This is why they're demonizing this. Well, you don't want to be in cryptocurrencies. It has no store of value. It's just electronic digital currency, or actually it's not even currency. Nothing to look at. Precious metals, don't even look over there. It's a hunk of metal. It's no big deal. The only thing that you should be looking at is the paper that we create, or the button they push and they create digital currency, which they control. And we see the central bankers, they're getting nervous. They know what is happening here. Their system is breaking down and it's being ripped apart. And they don't like this. And we can see the economies around the world, they're all starting to fall apart. Now remember, their system only lasts for a period of time and then it starts to disintegrate. This is what we're seeing right now. It is disintegrating right in front of our eyes, because it's only supposed to last for a certain period of time, 40 to 45 years at the most. And they stretched this one a little bit longer because they thought they were going to have a certain candidate. They thought they were going to go into war. They thought they were going to be able to explain this, explain the whole thing away by having this great event, which would be war. And this is why everyone would have to sacrifice. This is why we'd have austerity. But this has not happened. They don't know what to do at this point. So they're getting nervous and afraid. But what we're seeing is that the entire system's starting to break down. I mean, look at Australia. The housing market starting to implode on itself. Retail spending growth stalled in July. And they thought it was going to be a lot better. They thought it was going to be a 0.4% gain. But it was flat. It's declining. People aren't spending. The housing market is falling. And they're trying to explain all of this away. Right now, they're saying that home furnishing stores, sales there are declining. Well, of course. Well, if people are not buying homes, people need less sofas. So we see a decline in home furnishings. I mean, this is just normal what we see here when a system starts to break down. And real estate is attached to many different industries. Lumber, electrical, cement, concrete, home furnishings, sheetrock. Those people who build the houses, those people who manufacture everything else that goes into a house. So each one of these areas, it's going to hit. IBM right now here in the United States, we see they are going to be laying off about 20,000 older workers, and they're going to be replacing them with 37,000 foreigners as replacements. Now, of course, the pay is a lot less. A lot of these workers that were older, they had retirement. So when you go out and you subcontract, you have no retirement, you have no health benefits, you have none of this, and you bring them in as a consultant. It's a lot cheaper, the pay is a lot less, and we can see that IBM, they are outsourcing all of this. And the American public, the people who've been working for IBM, they're going to be left out in the cold. Now, there was a joint investigation by ProPublica and Mother Jones, and it reveals that about 60% of the Americans that were laid off by IBM in the last 5 years were workers over the age of 40. This amounts to about 20,000 40-year-olds and older Americans being laid off by IBM since 2014. At the same time, IBM has attempted to import at least 37,000 foreign workers on H-1B visas since 2016. Every year, more than 100,000 foreign workers are brought into the U.S. on the H-1B visa and are allowed to stay for about or up to 6 years. So you can see over the many years where they're telling us that this economy is fantastic, it's growing, it's looking great, companies are doing fantastically. We know a lot of the companies have been buying back their own shares. We know they've been shutting down different offices, laying off different people. We see IBM is replacing the high-paying American workers for foreign workers. They don't have to give them benefits. They don't have to give them retirement. And it's a lot cheaper, and it makes the company look like it's doing a lot better. Even if their workload is dropping, it still looks like they're doing better because they're cutting costs. So if the economy is doing so fantastically, why would they have to do this? They wouldn't. But we can see at this point, a lot of companies are doing this because the economy is not doing that great. And we can see around the world, in Canada, Australia, Europe, it's all starting to implode all at once. Now, the central bank, they do not benefit the American people whatsoever. They don't benefit the country whatsoever. They're put into place to damage each and every one of these countries by putting them into debt and removing manufacturing, removing high-paying jobs, removing everything, and put the everyday person into debt. Let's take a look at what the central bank has done to the U.S. First, if you want to go to college, well, you got to go into debt first. There's debt number one. If you want a vehicle, you have to go into debt. If you want a home, you have to go into debt. If you want that nice new pair of shoes and you don't want to wait for it because you have to save up money because you don't make enough, well, you got to go into debt. You got to go into debt because you have to put it on your credit card. Think about this for a second. Everybody who wants to purchase something like a car, a home, they want higher education, or even clothing, or even food. The economy has been brought to its knees where everyone has to have some form of debt one way or another. Here's some facts to show you how bad it is. Collectively, Americans have more than $1 trillion in credit card debt, and this is according to the Federal Reserve. They have another $1.5 trillion in student loans, up from $1.1 trillion in 2013. Motor vehicle loans are now topping $1.1 trillion, up from $878 billion in 2013. And they have another $15 trillion in mortgage debt outstanding. 78 million Americans are participating in the gig economy because full-time jobs just don't pay enough to make ends meet these days. In 2011, the average home price was 3.56 times the average yearly salary in the United States. But by that time, 2017 was finished, the average home price was 4.73 times the average yearly salary in the United States. In 1980, the average American worker's debt was 1.96 times larger than his or her monthly salary. Today, the number has ballooned to 5. In the United States today, 66% of all jobs pay less than $20 an hour. 102 million working-age Americans do not have a job right now. That number is higher than it was at any point during the last recession. Earnings for low-skilled jobs have stayed very flat for the last 40 years. Americans have been spending more money than they make for 28 months in a row. In the United States today, the average young adult with student loan debt has a negative net worth. At this point, the average American household has nearly $140,000 in debt. Poverty rates in the U.S. suburbs have increased by 50% since 1990. Almost 51 million U.S. households can't afford basics like rent and food. The bottom 40% of all U.S. households bring home just 11.4% of all income. According to the Federal Reserve, 4 out of 10 Americans do not have enough money to cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing the money or selling something they own. 22% of all Americans cannot pay all of their bills in a typical month. Does this sound like an economy that has been doing well under the central bank reign? No, this sounds like economy that's imploding on itself, and it's getting worse and worse as time goes on. This is why the young people today, they're finding it very difficult to do anything, because everything has to do with debt, everything has to do with loans, everything has to do with low-paying jobs, wages are decreasing, and people just can't get ahead. We are seeing inflation if you know where to look, because they've been stuffing it into real estate, into automobiles, into the stock market, into education, into health insurance, overseas. We see it in food. That means the number of dollars needed to purchase these items, you need more of it, which means the value of the dollar is decreasing. The central banking system destroys economies. They don't help it. This is why they always need to reset it after a period of time. Now, before I talked about how I believe Powell is definitely working with Trump in some way. And we can see that Powell, he's defending the central bank's policy of gradually increasing key interest rates, and he signaled that hikes will continue, brushing off what Trump has said. Now, this to me sounds like it's just like clockwork, just like with Sessions, just like everything else that's going on right now, where they're playing against each other to make it seem like Powell is not working with Trump, Powell is against Trump, Trump doesn't want him to raise the rates, but he really does. He wants the Fed to raise the rates to destroy the system. Now, we know that Trump criticized what the Fed was doing and criticized the independence of the Fed, and Powell did not directly reassert the Fed's legal independence from the White House, which is very interesting. He did signal that the Fed officials would do what they think is right for the economy, regardless of political pressure. So you can see how this is all being played out right now. And it looks like Trump and Powell, it seems like they're using the same exact strategy as Trump and Sessions, where they're going against each other. Trump is calling out the Fed. The Fed is going to do exactly what Trump wants them to do, and that is to raise interest rates. Because you know what happens when they raise the interest rates, and he probably wants this to happen a lot quicker than not. Because when you raise the interest rates, the real estate market starts to break down, the automobile market starts to break down, the student loan market starts to break down, everything starts to break down. And the real people's economy, I'm not talking about the statistical numbers that they throw at us, the real people's economy starts to break down. The easy money goes away. Corporations, they start to have problems. The market starts to have problems. Things start to break down very, very quickly. All of this has been planned since the beginning, and everything is tied into one another. The economy, the Fed, what is happening with Sessions, Clinton, Comey, Strzok, and the rest. Everything is all tied into the central bank and the deep state. To get rid of the deep state, you got to cut off their funding. How do you cut off their funding? You got to get rid of the central bank. How do you improve the economy? Got to get rid of the central bank. How do you make people's lives better? Got to get rid of the central bank and the deep state. Everything is all tied into one. So you can see that this has been planned. We're going to be going through this transition. It's going to be rough for some people. Other people, it's going to be a lot easier. And why is it going to be easier for some people? Well, because they've been preparing for this exact moment. Other people sitting on the sidelines, not realizing what's coming, they haven't been preparing. They're thinking, oh, I don't have to prepare. It's not a big deal. You don't have to worry about that. It's never going to come. So far, I haven't seen it, so I don't have to worry. Well, you know a storm's coming, and it's a sunny day. You don't see it, but you know the hurricane or whatever storm is coming is headed your way. But it's sunny, it's sunny, it's sunny, it's sunny. It's starting to get cloudy. Yeah, you didn't have to prepare all those days. But when the storm hits and you're not prepared, guess what? You're going to be rushing around. You're going to be looking for items. You're going to be looking for your preps. And guess what? At that point, that's what everyone else is going to be doing. That's why you should have been preparing, rotating your items, making sure you had this. I mean, if you haven't started to prepare and you're just getting wind of all this, I would start now. We're getting warnings from Q. We're getting warnings that something is about to hit. Not just with the economy, with everything that we're seeing. Remember, it is all tied in. So get prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.